Okay, well, welcome. This one is our spoiler-free review of episode 2, season 3 of The Orville. How are you?
I'm doing great. I actually just finished it today, so it's kind of fresh in my mind.
Nice. Okay.
trying to finish it off as quick as I can, but with lots of responsibilities, post school stuff. So I'm on summer break now officially. So
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Raring to go.
Very, very nice. Yeah, I actually sent you some criticisms of it, like the day it was released, that when I was watching on my phone, and then I watched it again today on like a larger computer screen, and mostly they've gone away. I probably should do that more, but I am the Techno Funk Boy. He is the Henshin Dad himself. How are you? I already asked you how are you. We're doing.
I'm doing great.
I took all the things out of order. I'm not going to edit this either, so.
It's too bad this isn't like a time travel episode, because that would make sense, or like a time loop.
Right, exactly. Yes.
It's not. Spoilers, I guess. It's not a time loop episode. But
yeah.
And it is not a Yu-Gi-Oh crossover either. I saw the title. It's called Shadow Realms, and anybody that watched Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day on 4Kids, the English dub, oh my goodness, the Shadow Realm. That was the thing. Are you familiar with the Shadow Realm?
No.
Are you familiar? Never mind.
I've seen
the worst
Yu-Gi-Oh.
card game ever invented.
I've seen Yu-Gi-Oh as very, very randomly. I had this job in banking and I was helping close a drive-through branch, and no one came. In fact, they sent me down there and like, can you entertain yourself for about 7 hours a day? Because you're really only going to work about 1. But the end of the day was very busy, and we had a little TV in there because it was so slow that we could watch TV if we wanted to. And one of the the only thing halfway interesting that was playing at the time that I was closing the branch in the afternoon was Yu-Gi-Oh, and so I would turn that on while I was balancing the drawers and all that. But that's really random. That has nothing to do with the Shadow Realm here.
Balancing the drawers? Like, were you a clown too?
Yes.
A man of many talents.
Absolutely. Shadow Realms. So this is a problem I had with the last episode. This is a problem I had with this episode, is how to kind of give a taste of this episode spoiler free esque, because this episode takes a number of turns that I wasn't expecting. I did not I didn't watch like the trailer for the episode or anything, so I don't know exactly how they build it, but I guess the point of the episode is that we are negotiating with the Krill to have safe passage through their space to explore some areas of space that we haven't seen before. And the admiral that they brought on to do that has a bit of a history with the Doctor.
That was one of the things about the episode that I was a little bit unsure of starting it, because it's like, okay,
gosh,
didn't we just have a pretty clear focus on, is it Claire?
Claire, yeah,
Claire's
right,
her name?
yeah.
Claire, the Doctor in the previous episode, and now she's kind of like front and center again.
Everybody's got it bad for Claire on the Orville. No one's finding love.
Admirals.
No one's finding love except her. Granted, even with like the first scene with him, like clearly she was uncomfortable with him. And clearly it was his fault because he actually apologizes. But even then, it takes a while to figure out exactly what's going on. But I think from spoiler free, I do think that we at least need to throw out the genre of this episode, which is ultimately horror. And the way they get there and the twists and turns once they're there are pretty interesting. But kind of any overall thoughts on the episode?
Well, overall, just kind of, generally speaking, like I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed the first episode,
No,
but that one also hit like a really big like emotional high and low, and it was like super involved and engaging. And with this one, it was also as such as well. And I think part of the problem is trying to watch this episode on my phone instead of like on a computer,
that
like with a big screen. I
that is
think
the
that
problem
actually
I
kind of
had. Yes, yes.
yeah. Yeah, because it's supposed to be a horror episode, and it's just like you can only really pay attention so much on the little tiny phone screen and be able to see all the details. I think if I watched it on like a bigger TV screen or something, it probably would have stuck out a little bit more to me. But for the most part, it's just like obviously I'm not like well, okay, I am kind of a wimp, in every other like horror area, and I don't like horror as a genre necessarily.
Yeah, yeah.
But even this is like, oh, okay, yeah, this is pretty typical, like a zombie type thing or some kind of like monster in the dark type thing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There is something I did want to bring up later, but that's going to be spoilerific. So,
Okay.
Remind me to bring something up.
We do have a separate video for spoilers. If you are new to the channel, please do like and subscribe the video. We really do appreciate it. I had the exact same problem. I watched it twice when it first came out, and then I watched it again today. Today I was watching it on the computer screen, and it was much more immersive. It was much better, and I had even not giving anything away, but there are some mixed CGI practical effects scenes, and on the phone they grated on me to the point where I messaged you like two things: I really like this episode, and two, quit it with the CGI. It's much better. It's there are still some issues with it that we'll hit in spoilers, but because it does kind of give something away. But there are issues with it, but it is much better on the screen. I still really liked it. Now, to your point, it doesn't hit the same vibe as the first episode, but it's not intended to.
Right.
Like the first episode was like, I mean, it cut to the core of who the crew was, of what the show is, of the overarching, plot lines. And this was purely an episodic kind of monster of the week. There's not normally monsters on the show, but monster of the week type of an episode. Yeah. And as that, I loved it. As that, I loved it. Now, yeah, it's not a top 5. It's not a top 5 episode, but I do think it does a couple of things. First of all, it does kind of allay potential fears that we were expressing last week of, is this going to be a single plot season? And no, it's not. This is an episodic episode. This is a contained story.
You could pretty much watch this without even seeing the first one.
Absolutely,
still get the entire story, no problem.
Right, yeah. And number 2 is, are we going to maintain quality? And I think so. I just discovered that Hulu has like these little behind the scenes, little 2-minute things of interviews and stuff. Had no idea. I'm glad. The only reason I found it was because I found a quote by Brandon Braga that the kind of the starting off point of this episode was the question, what are the Krill afraid of? And that kind of launched them into this. And
which is a great question to ask, honestly, because you've already presented these guys as like not necessarily the big bad, but like a main antagonistic force that they are kind of wrestling with and trying to come to terms with. So, like, what are they afraid of? It's like, oh, that's a good idea.
Well, and one of the interesting things about the Krill is that their confidence does not come through their actual strength. Their confidence comes through their ideologies, and which makes them a really interesting villain. And so like I with a gunfight between the Orville and a Krill ship, the Orville's taking them out at 50% of the time, but they're not afraid of anything because they believe their god is giving them victory. And so that kind of concept is really interesting.
Especially I mean, if you compare them to Klingons and everything, it's like they didn't necessarily have like this monotheistic religion, but they did have this sense of like honor and pride in your
Right.
work, and like warfare being and dying in battle being like one of the greatest things you can do, basically like a Viking type theology, I guess. So
Yeah.
I think taking the Krill to that extent where they are a monotheistic religion, that's really interesting. You don't actually see that in sci-fi, like
Yes.
period, basically,
Yeah.
except in like super obscure shows.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. No. No. I really like them as a race and as a people, especially in season 2 when we were really getting to know them better.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was great. Should mention this episode was written by Brandon Braga and Andre Bormanis, directed by John Kasser, all Star Trek alums. Brandon Braga was one of the main people in Star Trek back from Next Generation forward. He pretty much was the brains behind Voyager, and but worked on TNG, Deep Space Nine, etc. And so on Orville, Brandon and Andre are not normally, exclusively right. Any episode by them is by them, and they've done some episodes in seasons 1 and 2 that I absolutely adored, and I think they're very, very solid, and really get it, and I just love that these Star Trek veterans are just embracing this show. I think it's great, and so yeah, this was a pretty fun one. Any spoiler-free standouts that we need to hit on?
I mean, we can kind of discuss this later in like the actual spoiler section,
Right,
as
yeah.
well, but I feel like what you brought up in a previous episode or previous discussion I had with you, where you were talking about how, is it Brandon
Braga?
How do you say his name?
Braga.
Brandon Braga,
I don't think I've ever heard him actually say it, so might be wrong.
Oh, okay.
Brandon, sorry. We love you.
I mean, you had this comment about the one episode where it's Isaac and the Doctor being on the planet with their boys and everything, basically being like a TNG episode. You could easily write in Data and Beverly, Crusher, and it's pretty much the same thing. That's kind of how this episode felt as well, because you substitute the Doctor for Beverly in this, and it pretty much works perfectly. Like, you don't actually have to change much at all, and it, it could very well have been an unused script at one point. So who knows?
There were episodes of TNG like this, like you know, kind of monster on the ship type thing, and so yeah, absolutely. That episode in the first season, and Into the Fold, I think it was called. I'm blanking on that, but that was the first episode where I was thinking, okay, no, I'm on board with this. This is a great show. Up until then, I was like, I'm enjoying this. Yeah, this is fun. But at that point, I'm like, no, I'm actually a fan of this show now, because that episode was fantastic, and that was them writing that episode as well. I in that little in some of those little behind the scenes things, we there was a clip of McFarlane kind of saying he approaching this season as every episode kind of being a mini movie. And again, like the first episode, this one is a little bit over an hour. It is shorter than the first episode, but it is over an hour. And we mentioned this the first time. I thought they had blown their entire budget on episode 1. They really didn't. The space scenes are great. The sets of some of the places they go, without again giving spoilers, the new sets are vast and very cool. Yeah. I don't know what their budget was for this season, but they're using it well. This show looks good, and it does feel large. It feels spacey. And so I really I thought that was very, very cool. And yeah. So,
and I would also agree the music, while I'm not necessarily a musical guy, it's like hearing a lot of the music, you're hearing similar themes like over and over in the
Oh,
different
of course,
episodes,
yeah.
and I feel like they just really like, I don't know. Like again, I can't really differentiate music very well because I'm just not a music guy. But the way the music sounds this season just like feels like head and shoulders above like where it was before. I don't know if there's anything different that they're doing or new themes that they're composing, but props to those guys because they are doing a great job.
Yeah, yeah. That that's one of the old Star Trek traditions is that episodes are scored and like and has like music throughout that really amplify. Yeah, and this season they're going all in on the soundtrack, and it's really good, really really good. So overall, I thought this was really solid. I really enjoyed this episode. It's the season is proving to be very very good, and so far, and I very very much encouraged that the second episode, while not as great as the first, is a really really enjoyable episode.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And honestly, it feels like this could have been like a series opener, to be perfectly honest, because it goes like some pretty like crazy places I did not expect necessarily, and
Yeah.
there are some pretty like brutal scenes later on. So it's like if this
Gosh.
actually started up a new season, like honestly, I'd be totally satisfied. So
Yeah, and this is like when we had this last week too. It's even just another 15 minutes on an episode, and this one I think is something like 65 minutes, and so it's really 20 minutes longer than a normal network television episode, but it gives them a lot more room for plot twist. And so where the episode starts and where the episode ends has not been close, and so it really is just difficult to kind of give the spoiler free setup of what you're about to watch, because it takes some left turns along the way, but that's good. It's the season's turning out to be very very good so far. So should we head over to spoiler territory? Or anything else we need to hit?
Yeah, I'm just saying,
okay.
2 episodes in, everything's looking great so far. Let's hope nothing gets messed up from here on out.
All right. If you have not subscribed, please do so. We're going to put out our next step. We're going to discuss it right now. But the spoiler review episode, which is the more fun one, is up next. So if you haven't seen this episode, please do check it out. And we're going to dive back in tomorrow for you. About 30 seconds for us. So we'll see you then.
Time travel.